Welcome back to the Fantasy Hockey Podcast, week preview, getting you set for this next week. There's honestly not a lot to take advantage of, so I hope you're not playing the first place team or anything this week. It's kind of a tough one. Not a lot of teams with multiple off nights. You're going to have to do some maneuvering. There's a lot of plays you can do. There's some teams that play early on in the week with off nights, some towards the tail end. There's not a lot. So in my opinion, for the most part, just overarching this whole episode, and maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't, but I think this is one of those weeks where you don't necessarily take the L, but you focus on long-term maybe a little bit more than you would in other weeks, or look forward a little bit more.
This week is just kind of, it's hard to advise on this week for several reasons. One being technically 4 of the nights are heavy game nights, but at the same time, none of them are super heavy. So it's going to vary a lot team by team. Like, for us to try to recommend off-night players like we usually do is kind of, we'll still try. There's still a couple teams that have good off-night schedules, but for the most part, it's going to be very much your team's particular composition that's going to determine who you pick up here.
You're really going to have to pay attention to what players are you benching throughout the week, if any, and of those players, does that mean you're going to need peripherals? Does that mean you're going to need points? It's very team specific this week. So I think from my perspective, I kept my recommendations very general, with ones that would work for anyone. And then you're going to have to dive into your own team and find some for your team that work depending on your composition, like you said, because it's really hard to give suggestions for everyone. And like I said, I think if you're at the top of the table, this is a great week to take stock of where you're at and start planning ahead.
Yep. Especially if you have a bye, you can start thinking about swamping the dude that you're, or lady, I guess, that you're going to play in semifinals with starts by going ahead and looking forward.
Yeah. I mean, especially if someone like you, who in our league is, I think, like 20 points ahead or something, you're probably still in a good spot to win next week. It might not be as much of a blowout as you like, but you can at least start to prep and have it close, still keep your lead, not really be afraid of losing that bye, but in prepping, you make yourself much more of a favorite later on.
Yep.
Okay, so let's jump into the week review. My first point here to talk about is Tarasenko, who apparently jumped out for a morning skate and was kind of going through some drills and looked good. He can't shoot at full power yet. It sounds like the coaches really just kind of want to get him into the flow of things again, have him getting into drills, have the chemistry be there, which is actually kind of smart, just to have the chemistry there. It seems very vague, though, on whether or not he's going to come back earlier. I don't think anyone wanted to say that.
Yeah, I don't know what I think about it yet. Like, it's obviously encouraging that he's skating, but we're talking about a shoulder injury, and all he really took were wrist shots, obviously. And I guess that's not too surprising, but I don't know. Like, I don't think they want to tip their hand necessarily and say that he is coming back early, because I guess there's no real point. But it is weird that very recently we heard that his timetable had shifted from 5 to 6 months, and now all of a sudden he's on the ice. So I'm of the impression he still will not play before the end of fantasy playoffs or regular season for the NHL. But I mean, who knows? Maybe he really is ahead of schedule. Maybe it's a Anthony Mantha punctured lung thing where suddenly he's just better somehow.
Yeah, I think that's why I kind of added that thing at the end there, where it was interesting that Berube never said, we're excited to have him back soon or anything. They were all very cautious. And so it seems like maybe what happened is his recovery has gone quicker than expected, but they don't want to say like, oh, he's going to be back in 3 weeks and rush it or anything like that. It's more just like, okay, maybe he's going to be ready sooner, but we're not going to rush things. We're going to see how it goes. He might have a setback or something like that. Like, they don't want to, they don't want to put that bad juju out there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. My first one is Jack Campbell.
Sorry.
Moved to 26% owned overnight.
And then he gets shelled by the Ducks. Oh, my God.
I mean, he got the win,
perfect.
But that was real ambitious, guys.
I mean,
he went from basically 0 to 26%. That's a lot of ads. I don't think I've seen a player move that much from a 0% ownership. He's not a starting goalie. Anderson's going to be back fairly soon, and it's not like his timetable is supposed to be super long. So you're looking for starts from a career backup in front of a pretty questionable defense that gets lit by a tired, traveling Anaheim team. It's not a good look. That should have been an easy game, and it wasn't, and it didn't look good. I mean, not necessarily that I'd point at Campbell for the problems, but
look, okay.
I mean, it wasn't great either.
Here's the thing. I hope if you picked up Campbell, you expected only W's. I hope that's what you expected. And I hope you understand as well that the problem was never in just Hutchinson. Okay? It wasn't just Hutchinson. When you look at Freddie Anderson, here's a fun stat for you. Okay? Freddie Anderson, in the new year, in the year 2020 so far, he has played 10 games. Do you want to know what his save percentage is?
500.
893.
Martin Jones?
Yeah. The Leafs have a defense problem. It doesn't matter who you put in net. It doesn't matter if it's Hutchinson, if it's Freddie, if it's Campbell. And the worst part is they're so inconsistent. If you look at Freddie Anderson's game log, it's like one game he has a 9.38, next game an 8.42. And yeah, he's 4-1-2 in those games. So tends to get wins more often than not. And that's what, of course, you're betting on with Campbell. But I sure as hell hope that you're not counting save percentage and goals against average. And I really hope you're not picking him up as your fourth goaltender or something, hoping for better save percentage and goals against average. The only thing to hope for with Jack Campbell is W's. Because the Leafs have not, for a while now, shown us that their defense is capable of providing a good system for the goaltender. It's a good enough system to win games, not a good enough system to give their goaltender a shot to be good. And if you want proof that you need a good system to give your goaltender a shot, look no further than what Columbus is doing. Two completely different styles. Works for both of them. Well, I guess it's questionable if it's working for the Leafs because right now Columbus is now in the third spot in the Metro, but that's what you got to expect with him is W's, and that's it.
Next point's yours.
I know. Yep. I stole your point. I'm sorry. I feel bad now. I feel like I just mansplained your point.
It was rude.
I know. Very. I apologize. So my next point here, again, kind of goaltender-ish. Florida. How unpredictable can you be?
Yeah, I benched Bob in the good game, and then I played him in the bad one.
You string together 5 straight wins. 5 good straight wins. Bob plays well. And then you let in 3, or was it 4, shorthanded goals?
Good Lord, it was 4?
It was either 3 or 4. I don't remember if it was 4. It might have been 4. It was 3 for sure. I just don't remember if there was a 4th. But the thing with Florida right now that's pissing me off as an owner of them from an offensive perspective, I have Huberdeau, I have Barkov, I also have Bob. The thing that pisses me off the most about them is just how unreliable their system is. I'm shocked that we have not seen more questions of Quenneville this year. I don't know why, but it really feels like Quenneville is immune from criticism at the moment. It seems like everyone is pointing at Bob or pointing at just the team in general or, oh, their defense core sucks. And yet, what's the system doing? The system is trash. Why? I don't understand why Quenneville is not getting more blame for what's going on. And I'm shocked. Maybe it's because they're scared because of what happened with Gallant. They moved on so quick. They kind of are deflecting a lot of it. I don't know. But something in Florida is just not working. And it's pissing me off a lot as a fantasy fan, to be honest.
Where are you seeing all these shorties? I mean, I know they gave up a few throughout the games. I'm not sure there's any particular one where they gave up a ton.
In that game against Vegas recently.
Really? I only see one.
Yeah. Was it only one? I thought it was more than that. Maybe I'm dumb.
I think you might be dumb. They got one shorty, and Shea Theodore got it because he's the best player in the world.
I'm pretty sure Mark Stone got one too. Goal. Did he not?
No, you're a maniac.
I only see one. You're right. I'm an idiot. Well,
we fact check on this podcast.
Okay,
we do it live. We fact check live.
Take all that back. Yes, you get to see us make mistakes. I'm okay with that. I thought there was more shorthanded. I saw something, I think, in Discord where someone was like, oh, there a bunch of shorthanded goals.
They have given up several shorthanded goals lately. So it's probably 3 in their last, 5 games or something. They've given up a shorty.
Either way, forget about the shorthanded comments. Everything else still stands.
Yeah.
Forget about the shorthanded was more just me being kind of annoyed at that. without checking, obviously. But everything else about Quenville and the system being completely terrible still stands.
Yeah, they have given up 3 shorties in their last like 6 games. So there's that.
Nice.
Okay. My next one is Andre Burakovsky is getting a lot of points lately. We've talked about it a few times on this podcast how it's unsustainable. I think that's probably fairly obvious to most of you, but he's sitting at 44% ownership. We're seeing him rise quite a bit. I'm kind of starting to view him as probably the most dangerous player in Cats leagues, which is an interesting statement. At least the most dangerous rising player right now, because he's giving you this mentality that he's going to keep getting these points, which he won't for a few reasons that we went over in both the last 2 episodes, really, Unsustainable and in Monday's episode. He doesn't have the ice time. He's not got any shots. He's putting up no peripherals. He doesn't get power play time. When you combine all that together, what you're looking at is a points-only player with very low minutes and very low peripherals. Does that remind you of somebody earlier in the season? Nick Schmaltz?
Ooh.
I think he's basically Nick Schmaltz. And
where's Nick Schmaltz now?
Who cares? That's where he is. But the fact of the matter is, these types of players can be kind of hard to drop after you pick one up, because it's so easy to look at their history and be like, oh, Burakovsky had a 4-point game very recently and he's been on this stretch and it looks great. But the fact of the matter is, even if Burakovsky goes to a 75 point pace right now in a Cats league, he's still not really worth it. It would take a pretty specific team to need that, because you're not getting any power play points, which is what boosts. I feel like Backstrom is always the guy I go to for this kind of comparison. Boosts Backstrom's value, because otherwise he wouldn't have a ton of value. He's a points-only guy in a Cats league, and you want to have all of your Cats filled in a league like that. So having a one-note player like that doesn't get power play points is very, very not good. And the fact of the matter is, those points are going to dry up soon, and you're going to feel real weird about dropping him because his ownership is still rising. It'll probably be above 50% by tomorrow. And he's a dangerous player. Be careful. If you're picking him up, do not buy into the points long term. If he even goes 2 games in a row without a point, drop him.
And let me reiterate something here, because I remember that Nick Schmaltz, a lot of people got angry with us because they thought we didn't like him and that we didn't recommend him. It's kind of the contrary. When we talk about players like this with Burakovsky and Nick Schmaltz, for example, I think it's quite obvious that if you need points, for example, he's obviously a decent pickup right now, right? Like, fine, a hot hand, sure. I'm not going to tell you no, because obviously, the points say contrary. What more so we want to say, and the thing that we see the biggest mistake of with people when they pick up players like this, is they give them way too long of a leash, which is effectively what Brandon was saying there. It's like, you can have a very short leash and be okay with that. If he goes 2-3 games without a point, you can dump, and that's okay. To expect what he has been doing, that's the mistake, and to hold on for ages, right? Alex Killorn is a good example of someone that I dropped very quickly as soon as he fell off, just because. And that's, remember, if you a few episodes ago we talked about pivot points and saying, like, okay, what makes a player good? And sometimes it's their inflated shooting percentage, sometimes it's their inflated shots or their inflated time, things that just change out of nowhere that can make a player be good. And as soon as you gotta, each player has their own. Find what each player's is, and then from there work back, okay, what am I watching for? At which point I need to drop, if that makes sense. So that's my little rant on that. So do you have any more week reviews here, or do you want to take us to the injury report?
I've got one more.
Okay.
Real quick, the Carolina line of Aho, Svech, and Turbo has been reunited. If you don't get that joke, listen to a few episodes ago.
Yep.
They've been reunited, and it's nice. Feels good as a Svech owner. For some reason, Daily Faceoff is still not showing this line together, but they played the entire time in the last game together. Seems likely that they will stick, and I think it's good news for all 3 of them, honestly. I don't really have a lot to add here, except that it's exciting for Svech owners who have watched him kind of tail a bit lately. And then Aho has just been on fire lately, and Turbo has been another unsung hero for the 2nd straight year, where people just don't quite get how well he's playing unless you own him. But he does. Turbo's basically the winger version of Backstrom, so.
I'd say Turbo's a little better than that.
I mean, as far as what he delivers, he's not a big. Actually, he's been shooting better this season. To be fair, he has been better, but he's still a points guy mostly. Hits aren't there, peripherals aren't there, but he gets some power play points and he gets regular points. But he's not a huge shot guy, and that's why I say he's similar to Backstrom.
And that's fair.
Right in the same point wheelhouse as Backstrom as well. 76 last season, looking to track right on that again.
Yep.
So
by the way, for the injury report, I know you don't have a lot today to go over for the injury report, but a lot of people were big fans of your commentary to the injuries last time. So I think we're going to have to make that a thing.
Yeah. I only do it on the returning players, though. Going out, I'm already talking about what's bringing them out. Coming back, I'll give a little bit of commentary.
Okay.
That's what I did last time, I think.
Yeah, let's give the people what they want.
Sure. Okay. First off, Mark Giordano's week to week with a knee hamstring issue. We don't know what that means yet. It's been theorized that he's torn it. That was what he thought, which would mean out for season. They have not really shown what has happened to him yet. So
they did say that it's not as bad as they thought, though. At least
they did, but I swear that you never know, man. They said the same thing about Hall last season. So
he's also
who knows? He's also old. Yeah. Next up, Philip Zanita. 1 to 2 weeks left with a lower body injury. So he'll be back, but it seems like Mantha might beat him back. So I'm not sure him coming back is going to matter. It's also potential that he gets sent down. I kind of doubt it because it seems like he's performing quite well in the NHL, and he's even with the minutes given. So I think it's unlikely he gets sent down, but it's a possibility. Next up is Shea Weber, day-to-day with lower body injury. They haven't really told us anything. Just all of a sudden he was on IR out of nowhere. So that's cool. Next up, Nico Heischer's day-to-day with lower body injury. Also over there on the Devils, we've got Sami Vatanen down with a lower body injury. Then we've got Mark Borowiecki, who is out for a couple of games for the birth of his child. So congrats to the Borowiecki family. We got a couple more here. John Marino broke his face all up. I think in practice, actually. Took a puck to the face, fractured his cheekbone. So he's probably done for the season. Although he was mostly a streamer pickup anyway, so it's not the biggest deal for fantasy, but kind of sucks, honestly. Like it was cool to see him kind of break out this season, but oh well. Frederick Anderson's day-to-day with a neck injury, as everybody knows, at least 25% of the population in this whole thing. 25% of the leagues are very well aware of Anderson being hurt. Elias Pettersson is day-to-day with a lower body injury. And then we've got a few returners. Rasmus Dahlin returned, which is great news for those of you that own him. Alexander Barkov returned, another fantastic ad. I don't really have like a whole lot of quips like I did last one because these guys matter. Chris Kreider returned just in time to get traded, probably, although they are not theorizing. It has been said that he's in in contract extension talks, which, I mean, I'm sure they're going to shoot their shot, but we'll see. That he's going to have to take, I don't know what they expect here. It's probably better off for them to trade him as everybody's been thinking anyway.
They better trade him. I'll be so mad if they don't trade him. Oh my God.
And then last off, Rupe Hintz came back, and I would make some mean remark about how it doesn't matter, but he skated with Ben and Sagan, so
he suck.
I like that.
He suck.
I mean, that game is going on right now, so I haven't looked to see if it's mattered, but that's literally as good a deployment as he can get on that team. So
it didn't matter.
It didn't matter.
It didn't matter.
Nope. Joe Pavelski got another power play goal. Oh God.
Of course. Yep. Yeah. Hintz skated 13 minutes. So much for that deployment. Good for him. Good.
I wonder what the period breakdown is. Did he get in trouble?
I don't know. I do not have the capabilities at the moment to look that up. But Rope Hintz, not a great option. Okay, so let's move into drop candidates. I have quite a few. I don't want to say hair raisers here, but I have a few. Brian Elliott is my first one. Goaltender, 25% owned. He sucks. Not worth owning. I would rather have Jack Campbell than Brian Elliott at this point. He's awful.
Hart should be back soon too, you'd think.
Yeah, sub 900 save percentage. He's just not good.
I have to go next. I was drinking a nice sip of water. My first one is Jack Campbell. Goalie 26%. Stop it. You know better. I don't have anything else to say. We've talked about Jack Campbell enough.
Yeah, that's it. I like that. I'm going to stick to the Leafs, actually. Rasmus Sandin.
Yep.
Defenseman, 26%.
I have him too.
Minutes are gone. Points are gone.
They were never there. He never had minutes. They were never there.
That's true. That's true. The points are gone. How about the points? The points are gone.
Yeah.
How about
and he has no peripherals. Guys, please.
Why is he 26% owned still? I don't get it. Come on, man. I mean,
and all
Timothy
the analysts
Liljegren,
that recommended picking him up, for shame.
Shame. I mean, honestly, I don't. I would never recommend you a defenseman who's getting 15 minutes a game to pick up. It's just, that's just irresponsible. Unless you're Dahlin. I mean, he at least gets like 19 minutes and it's all power play time. So that's fine. It's when you're like getting 12 minutes with just mediocre second power play minutes.
He's on power play too, but come on.
I mean, yeah, the power play 2 sucks. Barely gets any time. Okay, who's your next one?
Victor Arvidsson is my next and last one with you taking Sandin. Left wing, right wing, 56%. You don't need to hold on to him.
I think this is the last time we'll ever talk about him again because he's irrelevant and we've mentioned him a lot of times. If you still have him, you don't listen hard enough.
Nah, he'll be on here again, I'm sure. But
I mentioned him last week, I think.
Yeah, we keep mentioning him.
He's bad. Yeah, we'll keep it up. I have 2 more here. So my first one is Jeff Skinner, center left wing, 49% owned. His minutes are down. Olofsson isn't even back, and he's not getting that time. He's still shooting sometimes. It's just not going in. It's just not working out for Jeff Skinner. That contract is looking mighty, mighty bad at the moment. You're paying $8 million to a third liner. Nicely done, Buffalo. As though you weren't enough of a mess already. You get to keep Jeff Skinner.
Was it $9 million?
Was it not? You want to look that up when I go to my next one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. My last one here is Dominic Kubalik. Left wing, right wing, 43% owned. He jumped up fast. His minutes are down to around 13. He did get a little bit of a tease up on the Kane Taze line. He's done.
8 years by 9.
8 years by 9. Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, that one's going to be a buyout.
Yeah. Or he'll just get a mysterious injury and be shipped off somewhere.
Oh my God, that's a bad contract. Wow, Buffalo, you are a disaster. So Kubalik, like I said before, he was very, very reliant on his high shooting percentage and goals. And as soon as the goals fell off, he hasn't really done much else. And now his minutes have kind of fallen off. And so he's a decent streamer at times, just because he does have that goal upside, which I like. When you think about, he reminds me a little bit of Bjorkstrand last year, where good sniper, scores goals first and foremost. And when you need goals, he's a good pickup, but he's not worth holding on to long term. And I just don't think at 43% owned. I'm trying to think of, there's probably a lot of leagues that he's owned in right now that I would not want him in. I mean, he's not even owned. He's not owned in our 12-person Banger Cats league. He's not owned in my 12-person standard league. He's owned in my points league, but that's a lot of Blackhawks fans, so not surprised there. But he's just not really worth owning right now.
Yeah, definitely. But I think there's a decent chance he gets moved off that top line too, and then he just goes right back to being the...
He only got like 13 minutes last game, so
yep.
I think that's kind of already happened, to be honest.
Okay, so shall we move into long-term targets then?
Long-term, and you have more than me too, so this is perfect that you're going in first. You're giving people a nice...
I think you're going to have my first one, so I'm going to jump down the list a little bit here.
Okay.
The first one I'm going to mention is Anthony Mantha. Left wing, right wing, 58%. He's looking close to coming back, so if you have that IR spot available, this would be a good time to pick him up and stash him. And if you're going to do that, I've mentioned this before, but I'm not necessarily recommending activating him the second that he comes off of IR. In fact, I have him in at least 1, maybe 2 leagues. I have no plans to activate him immediately. I'll just kind of eat not being able to make some streamer pickups. In the meantime, see what he's doing, because if he doesn't come back looking good and getting good minutes, he may wind up being a drop. But if he's free right now, especially if you have a spot to stash him, he could be a good, rest of season hold.
Yeah, I agree with that. And my first one here, who you thought we agreed on, and I'm pretty sure we do, is Damon Severson, defenseman, only 8% owned. While everyone is holding on to Sandin, 26% owned, Damon Severson is sitting out there and looking really good. He's continues to get points. His minutes have continued to go up. I really like his peripherals as well. At the moment, I think he's a little bit of a long-term hold as long as he's on that top power play and getting the minutes that he is. Big fan of Damon, especially when you look at the injuries out there, of Giordano, for example. When Dahlin was out, I picked up Severson for a bit. With the injuries out there, Severson is a fantastic person to fix that gap.
Yep. My next one is Noah Hannafin. Defense 5% owned. He currently has that top power play spot in Calgary, which hasn't really worked out for Giordano. But weirdly, that power play quarterback has seemed to change that power play's ability quite a bit differently at different times throughout the seasons. We saw TJ Brody be very successful there for a little while, even though he's the most boring player to own. And then Giordano for a while couldn't get anything done, which is similar to what's happening this season. And then last season you had this breakout campaign. So I don't know if this changeup is going to do anything, but with him being that low owned, he's worth a gamble in a good amount of leagues. And he also he doesn't do nothing. He's not like the best peripheral guy, but he won't totally ghost all the stats. So there is that. And at 5%, if it doesn't go well, just drop him.
Yeah. My next one here for long term, we've talked about him quite a bit, at least I have, and that's Nick Suzuki, center right wing, 21% owned, has a fantastic schedule. If I could, I'd put him on short term targets, but I actually really like him long term. He's clicking pretty well with Armia. Occasionally you see Kovalchuk up there. He was moved up to what is technically the top power play, and I know Brandon's going to point out they don't have a top power play because they split, but the top one is technically more effective at converting than the second. But that's a kind of a moot point. It's not that big of a gap. But nonetheless, that probably means that maybe a few more minutes for Nick Suzuki. But if anything, to me, it points to the coach trusting him a lot. And he has paid it back. So I like Nick Suzuki a lot. I actually grabbed him in 3 or 4 different leagues. I'm a big fan of him, and especially with him having such a great schedule this next week. He's a guy who could turn into a long-term option or a really long-term option. But at the very worst, he is a fantastic option for this week because Montreal has such a good schedule, as we'll talk about.
Yep. So staying on Montreal, Ben Chiarot is my next recommendation.
Yep, had him on short term.
22%. Yeah, he's got Weber's power play slot right now. He skated over 4 minutes on the power play in his last game, which is unusual for him, but it's kind of as good a way to inject life into Chiarot as you can hope for. He started to slow down a little bit in his banger stuff. I know a lot of us, including myself, had owned him or did own him or do own him in bangers leagues, but now having this point upside is just going to add that little bit extra for him, especially to get power play points out of a defenseman that is not known for it. Will be a nice little bonus.
I'm actually surprised I'm kind of surprised, but also not surprised that they did that. It's pretty obvious that they wanted to keep that second power play humming still.
I don't know who else they would put there. Like I looked at it and it was like they really don't have a lot of options.
I thought they'd put Petrie up on the first where that they might move Petrie up to where Weber was and then Chiarot on the second one. But I guess
I'm not surprised they didn't though. Like again, they do split those units, so why change the working one with Petrie on it? So
yeah, and the Petrie one has been working like you said. So I mean, there's no reason to kind of mess that up. Might as well keep that the same. And yeah. My next one here is Sam Reinhart, center right wing, 60% owned, one of the higher owned guys that we'll talk about in a long-term target. But surprisingly, he's available in a lot of my leagues. He's a guy who is somewhat of a borderline own in 12-person leagues. So he was available in my 12-person. He's not super consistent, but what I do like about him is that he gets a lot of minutes. He plays with Jack Eichel. There's upside when Olofsson comes back. I like Reinhardt's game quite a bit, and he's been playing really well. And on top of that, he's on the top power play. And again, with Olofsson coming back, that could be good for him. I like him a lot, and he's one of those guys that reminds me. I'm trying to remember the player that I was talking about before. Sometimes in big, good leagues where you have really smart players, oftentimes you'll sometimes find these 60% owned guys like Sam Reinhart, who's a big name in a way, like people know who he is. And so he's held on to in a lot of different. He's held on to by a lot of people who are just kind of going off name value, so their percentage stays high. But in deeper leagues, they use more of a. They or not deeper leagues. Sorry, in smarter leagues, people will drop guys like him because he's borderline and they'd rather have a streamer spot, and so he's always someone that's worth checking in with and seeing if he's out there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't think I've owned Reinhardt at all ever.
I remember when I went to pick him up, I was like, do I really want to pick up Reinhardt? I was like, one, why is he available? Because he was high owned and doing pretty well. And two, I was like, do I want to be the person that owns Reinhardt? And the thing is, like, that's kind of where I've been since I've owned him. I haven't dropped him. I've owned him now for 2 or 3 weeks. I got him when he was doing pretty poorly and turned it around. But I mean, he's been shooting a lot. That's one of the things I like the most about him recently is in his last 3 games. He has 10 shots on goal, which is fantastic. So he's been shooting a lot more. He's consistently in the 20-minute mark. Against Detroit, he played 25 minutes. He played 22 against Montreal, 20 against Columbus, 20 against Colorado. His minutes have just been so insanely high. And if he continues to shoot too, that's a really good thing for him. And his points, honestly, have been pretty consistent for the past month or so. So I like Reinhardt. He's just kind of one of those guys, like you said, that I feel like if you pay attention to fantasy, he's not someone that you normally think of grabbing. But he's been pretty good. That's kind of why I wanted to put him on a radar. And you may, I don't want to say you probably trade for him, but maybe in deeper leagues, he might be worth targeting a little bit just because I really like the line he's on and Olafson's not even back.
Yeah. Okay, I've got one left.
Okay.
Pavel Buchnevich, right wing, 19%. This is more of a, we're close enough to the trade deadline that if you're in a team, if you're on a team, or rather GM a team that is doing well enough that you're not too worried about your playoff positioning, you can kind of hedge the bet here. He's playing on a good line anyway with Kreider and Zibanejad. He doesn't have top power play at the moment, but if Kreider gets moved, I think Buch is going to be the one that benefits the most from it because he's likely to get top power play, and that should help him enough to make him pretty relevant in a lot of leagues. The big question mark is whether he keeps ice time up. Again, I think if Kreider moves, especially if they move any other pieces that are like a Ryan Strome, for example, I don't think they would, but if they moved any more pieces from that top 6, it just increases Buchnevich's value even more. So keep an eye on him if you're not already. And if you've got the room in a deep enough league, he could be a decent hold for now. And he's got a decent schedule this week too.
Yeah, I don't hate that. And also, now looking back on it, man, did I botch that Reinhardt talk. I messed up so many words. Whew.
Yeah, you were basically like the rambling man.
I don't know. That was a lot of rambling. I apologize, folks. I could have just swept it under the rug, but I'm gonna bring it up and I don't know what the hell happened to my brain there. That was bad. That was like Jack Campbell trying to stop that puck on the 4th goal against Anaheim. Whoop. Let's move on to the week preview here. Man, Leafs fans, I swear I don't hate the Leafs. It's just fun. I can't help myself. So moving on to the week preview. Here's the teams with 4 or more games. No team has more than 4 games, but here's the teams with 4. That's going to be Arizona, Calgary, Chicago, Columbus, Dallas, Detroit, Edmonton, Florida, Montreal, Nashville, New Jersey, New York Islanders, New York Rangers, Ottawa, Philadelphia, St. Louis, Tampa Bay, and Toronto. Whew, take a breath really quick. Teams with 2 games are going to be the Los Angeles Kings only, so that team does not matter. Then teams that play 3 off nights are going to be Montreal, and that's it. Only Montreal. There's only Columbus plays 2. I don't remember if there's any others that play 2.
There are a couple.
Okay, so there's 1 or 2 more.
But again, I think Sunday is like close enough to an off night that it's probably fine for you as well. But
okay,
there's Columbus, there's Calgary. Yeah, and then there's Vancouver.
Yeah, there ain't a lot.
And Sharks.
That's not a lot.
So there you go.
Yeah. So look, the short-term targets are going to be pretty self-explanatory here. Obviously, we're going to target Montreal players. I think that's obvious. So I'm going to take 2 here, and then I only have one other one, but I'm going to take 2. Philip Deneau was the first one, center 36% owned. High minutes, good opportunity for goals and points. Plays power play time. Cool. Good option as a center. The other one is Ilya Kovalchuk. Obviously, surprisingly, still 36% owned only, which is pretty crazy. Left wing, right wing. Great option if he's available in your league. I can't imagine a better left wing, right wing option this week given the off nights. I mean, that's such a steal. So I'd definitely pay attention to Ilya Kovalchuk there.
Yep. My first 2 are 2 Knicks. I've got Nick Suzuki, center right wing, 21%.
I thought you were talking about the New York Knicks at first. It's like, you have no idea what you're talking about, sir.
You have no idea what you're talking about, sir.
That is true.
The next one is Nick Foligno, center left wing, right wing, 24%. Very good in bangers leagues. Put up 9 shots in his last game with a bunch of hits. He's very Blake Coleman-esque without the point upside lately, but he is also playing a lot of power play time. He played something like 80% of the power play in his last game, which I still think is power play 2. So I'm not sure we're going to see a ton of power play time, but he gets some. And he's playing with Bjorkstrand and Dubois at even strength. So decent upside there with great peripherals. He can really win a matchup just from his peripherals. So keep an eye on him.
Yep. And my last one here, before you jump into your rest of suggestions, is Pierre-Luc Dubois. Actually, the line mate there, center 72% owned. I was shocked that he's actually available in quite a bit of my leagues. Reminds me a little bit of that Sam Reinhart thing where he's available in these, I don't know, sharper leagues, sharkier leagues, whatever you want to call them. And especially as a center, like it's just one of those things where if you don't have a deep center slot and no utils or anything like that, Pierre-Luc Dubois may be available. But given that there's the 2 off nights early in the week for Columbus, I like him quite a bit at the center position.
Yeah, I don't have these next couple of players written down, but I think it's worth pointing out that it looks like it's Adam Gaudette centering the Pettersson line, which is interesting. In fact, it was
while
Adam
Pettersson's
Gaudette.
out, you mean, right?
Yeah, Elias Pettersson's line. Yeah, centering that line.
Yeah,
in place of him. Yeah.
Yes.
So there's that. The weird thing is that, and I was hoping this would not be the case, but I thought that we would see Tanner Pearson go power play 1. And what we didn't see was Tanner Pearson go power play 1. What we did see is Brandon Sutter.
Brandon Sutter.
So I would say I feel like Virtanen or Pearson could be an option depending on what we see in the next morning skate. I don't know which one to recommend. One of them has to wind up on top power play. And whichever one does, I think gets a bit of a bump. Vancouver plays Monday, Wednesday, so you can hang on to him for Monday, Wednesday, and then either continue to hang on to him because that Sunday there's only 9 games being played, so you probably won't be benching. You could potentially hang on till then, or you could drop him and go for somebody that's playing, more nights or whatever, and maximize your roster starts.
Or if you're a madman, pick up Ben Sutter.
Don't do that. It's gonna go so poorly. I got one left
avenue of sadness
that I'll just go into as well, which is Mikael Granlund. This really is just a short-term play because I don't have any faith in him long-term. Been playing pretty well lately. Left wing, right wing, 21% on the Nashville Predators, and they have an okay schedule. They play 4 games, and 2 of them are off-ish nights. You might be able to fit him in on all of them. And Granlund has been decent enough, especially with the minutes, to warrant at least a look for a short term.
Yeah, don't hate it, but also don't love him. So
don't love it either. But
conflicted, very conflicted. So there you go. That is the week preview. I should have just called this the rambling preview because I tended to do that quite a bit this episode. Not a good look. Not a good look at all. So hopefully this helps you out. Remember that the schedule is not fantastic, so play it smart. If you're top of the table, look ahead. If you're towards the bottom, just try to do the best you can with what there's out there, and focus on, instead of focusing on players to pick up, focus on specific categories or what can get you the most upside in your points, which honestly you've probably been doing anyways all season, but good to mention anyways. So there you go. Thank you for listening. We will catch you next time, and appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks for listening.